Hello and welcome into this week's ARCA Menards series rewind show. I'm Garth Allen. This is Racing News Now, and today we're going to talk about the 2021 Zinsser Smart Coat 200 from the .438 mile Berlin Raceway in Marty, Michigan. 200 laps, 87.6 miles. ARCA's return to Berlin Raceway. First time ARCA has been at this track since the infamous 2018 race. You remember that race, the race that Joe Graff Jr. basically just plowed through the field and won his one and only ARCA Menards Series race to date. First time ARCA's been back at this track since. It was supposed to be back last year on the East schedule, and then of course that got canceled due to COVID, and then it got moved back onto the main ARCA schedule this year, and we actually ran the race. And I gotta say, I think we were due for a boring race. After a few really good races in a row, I think we were due for a not so great race. There were a couple of halfway exciting points in this race, but really this was one of the more boring races of the year. And I've said this before, they can't all be barn burners. You can't expect them all to be barn burners. They lose their luster when they're all barn burners, they're all exciting, and every lap you're on the edge of your seat waiting for something to happen. You gotta have races like this every once in a while because it makes you appreciate the good races. It makes you appreciate the Poconos and the Elcos that much more when we have races like this that are just kind of eh. So let's talk about this one. Only 4 caution flags, total of 19 laps, 2 of those obviously being the brakes at 76 and 126. The 50 of Morgan Alexander spun off of turn 4 on lap 34. And then on lap 131, Gracie Trotter got turned by Thad Moffitt off of turn number 4. That would really ruin both of their nights from that point forward. Thad actually would not finish the race. He continued for a little bit after this and then parked the car later with power steering issues. Gracie ended up a lap down after this. Neither one of them had great nights going. They were both basically back half of the top 10, but this solidified their bad nights and made them that much more worse. But overall, not a lot of really incidents happening in this race. After the last time we were here and all of the excitement that happened in that race in 2018, it was rather surprising how quiet this race was tonight. There really wasn't even any battling going on for the lead. You had contact a couple of times, which will happen in a short track race, not surprisingly, but really, I mean, it was just one driver kind of running away with it. Lap leaders on the night, Ty Gibbs led 2 laps. Daniel Dye led the other 198 laps. So, the question here is, were Ty Gibbs' laps that he led the last 2 laps, and he stole this one away from Daniel Dye? Or did Daniel Dye pick up his first career ARCA Menards Series victory and only his 3rd start in that 21 car, 2nd in the main ARCA Menards Series? I said that this was a fairly boring race, and that would imply that Ty Gibbs did not steal this win from Daniel Dye, because if he only led the last 2 laps, then obviously this would have been an exciting finish because he would have stolen it right at the end of the race. He did not. Ty Gibbs' 2 laps that he led were just nosing out in front on restarts, and Daniel Dye ran away with this race. Now, that being said, Ty Gibbs was coming at the end of this race. I don't know what happened in those last few laps. I don't know if Daniel was just kind of backing off, making sure he got to the end of the race, and he maybe backed off a little too much. But Ty Gibbs cut that lead from about 2 seconds down to like a car length in about 5 laps or so. I don't know where Ty Gibbs came from in those last few laps, but he was coming. Another lap or 2, and Ty Gibbs actually might have stolen this race, but was not quite able to get there. And Daniel Dye, at 17 years old, picks up his first career ARCA Menards Series victory very quickly, showing that he is going to be a contender week in and week out in that 21 car now that he's gotten solidified in it. Took him a couple of races to, I think, get used to having a car that was that quick, because let's be honest, he's been in that 43 car for Ben Kennedy Racing in ARCA East for the past couple of seasons. And while that's not a backmarker car, it's not necessarily a car that's up competing for wins. Whereas that 21 car, if you put a good driver in that car, they're going to compete for wins, as evidenced by Sam Mayer the past couple of years, and now as evidenced by Daniel Dye. Obviously, if you've got talent, you're going to be competing for wins in that car. It took him a couple races to get used to, I think, just being in a car that was that competitive. Now that he's gotten used to it, boy, oh boy, did he run away with this one. Now, he only had, I think the most lead he had in this race was like 2 seconds. So it's not like he stretched out a gigantic lead and nobody was even in the same league as him. Ty kept it fairly close for most of the race, but at the same time, Ty never really mounted a charge either. Ty was kind of quick on restarts and tried to steal it from him, but as soon as they single filed out, Daniel would just drive away from him. Daniel Dye showed tonight that he is the real deal, that he's got talent, and if you put him in the right car, he's going to go out and win races, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him compete for the championship next year. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if GMS plans on putting him full-time in this car next year to run for the ARCA championship. I don't know what the plan is there, but he's showing that if that happens, he will be a competitor for this championship and be a strong competitor at that. So let's take a look at your results. Of course, Ty Gibbs did come home in the second position. Again, he mounted a charge there at the end, only a couple car lengths back, 1 or 2 car lengths. He was right there, but unfortunately for Ty, not quite able to get to that back bumper of Daniel Dye to mount any kind of a charge there late in the race. Corey Heim came home in the third position, a clear third. Well, I say a clear third. He and Taylor Gray swapped that spot back and forth a lot in this race. You really probably could have interchanged them at any point in this race and it would have made sense. They were very even through most of this race. Taylor spent a lot of time in third, then Corey would spend a lot of time in third, and they'd swap it back and forth a couple of times. Corey ended up being the one in third, which is good for him in his championship quest because that gives him that extra point and doesn't allow Ty to close in any more than he had to after this race. Ty, of course, only closing in by 1 point after this race, with finishing 1 point ahead of Corey Heim. I say he only closed in by a point. Corey came in with a 7-point lead into this race. The official points show Corey Heim leading by 6 points now leading this race. But if you look at the results for this race and the points breakdown that each driver got in this race, it shows Ty Gibbs with 43 points coming out of this race and Corey Heim with 41 points, which would mean that Ty gained 2 points on Corey Heim in this race, which would mean it's a 5-point lead, right? So I'm not sure how ARCA's doing their math here. I don't know. I just know what I'm given from ARCA. So we'll go with that. Since the official points say 6, we'll go with that, and we'll dive more into that momentarily. Taylor Gray did come home in the 4th position with Jesse Love, another strong top 5 run in this race. It was actually kind of funny after the race. His post-race interview with Dave Reef down on pit road. Dave asked him, he was like, okay, so a couple days from now, when you think back on Berlin, is this a race that you're going to look back on and say this was a fun race? Jesse sits and thinks for a minute, deadpan looks at Dave and goes, no. He's like, we were in 5th. This was not a good race for us. This was not fun. He's like, I did not enjoy this race. And that doesn't surprise me. Jesse was really a non-factor tonight. I think he was only as high as 4th at one point. He was really there right in that 4th to 6th range most of the race. Just was not competitive in this race. He did not click with Berlin this week. Maybe he'll click more with Iowa next week. We shall see. Rest of your top 10. Nick Sanchez in 6th, another off night for Nick Sanchez. He had an off night in Elko, has another off night here in Berlin. Not sure what's up with that 2 team at Rev Racing lately, but he needs to turn things around if he wants to continue to fight Thad Moffitt for that 3rd position in points. The return of Mason Mingus, another strong run for him in 7th. Good run for that 11 car for Fast Track Racing. Gracie Trotter, after her run-in with Thad Moffitt, was only able to muster an 8th place finish 1 lap down. Career best finish for Owen Smith, also in a Fast Track car in 9th. His first career top 10 finish. Congratulations to Owen Smith. Great run for him tonight. And Morgan Alexander rounding out the top 10 in that 50 car for Nice Motorsports. Also a career best finish for Morgan Alexander there in that 10th spot. Final page 11th through 16th. Alex Clubb came home in 11th. Thad Moffitt retired at lap 156 with power steering issues after his run-in with Gracie Trotter. He came home in 12th. Zachary Tinkle in the 06 for Wayne Peterson this week in 13th. And Brad Smith, Tony Cosentino, and Mike Basham rounded out your field in Berlin. So that's your results from the Zinsser Smart Coat 200 from Berlin. Working on a Daniel Dye interview. Not sure when that's going to be, but definitely we are going to make sure we have him on after this one to talk about this incredible first win for him in his second career ARCA Menards Series start in the main ARCA Menards Series. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you go down below, hit that subscribe button, and you ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. Point standings following Berlin. Corey Heim, as we mentioned, still leads Ty Gibbs by 6 points now. Heading into Iowa, we are at the halfway point of the 2021 season, and Corey Heim still leads the points. There's been a lot of naysayers this season saying Ty Gibbs was going to run away with this championship, and he hasn't done that. He's won the most races up to this point. He's won 5 of the first 10 races, but he does not lead the points. As I've said throughout this entire season, this is going to be a battle for the ages, right down to the checkered flag at Kansas. I mean, we're talking Christian Eckes, Michael Self 2019 vibes right now. That's how good I think this championship battle is going to be. It's going to go right down to Kansas, and it's going to be an exciting one. I'm so excited to see how this latter half of the season plays out with this championship battle. These two are the titans of ARCA this year, and they are going to put on a show for us. Now, Daniel Dye might have something now to say in terms of race wins, but these two are going to be right there every week, and I mean, we're not done with seeing these two win races. They're going to win probably the majority of the races for the rest of the season, and they're going to be competing right down to that last moment at Kansas, and it's going to be fun to watch. Thad Moffitt still holds down the third spot, even after his troubles in this race, but only up on Nick Sanchez by 18 points now in that battle for third. You've really got two battles right now in the points. You've got the battle for the championship with Corey Heim and Ty Gibbs, and then you've got the battle for third with Thad Moffitt and Nick Sanchez. Nobody else in this top 10 is running a full season. Brad Smith is the only one that's been close. He's run all but one race so far. Everybody else, Drew Dollar, Kyle Sieg, they've run 7 races. D.L. Wilson, Jack Wood have run 6 races. Owen Smith has run 7 races. Gracie Trotter's up to 11th. She'll probably be in the top 10 at some point soon, as well as Jesse Love, who's now in 13th. So they'll probably get into the top 10 eventually. But really, your battles that really matter in the points right now are your battle for the championship with Corey Heim and Ty Gibbs, and your battle for third with Thad Moffitt and Nick Sanchez. That's your point standings, though, following Berlin, and I believe that'll do it for us tonight on this ARCA Rewind show. iRacing Tuesday, coming up on Tuesday. Not 100% sure if we'll have a driver this week or not. If not, we'll be back on Pickup Cup or Carb Cup. Picked up the win in Carb Cup this past week in the Next Gen car at iRacing Super Speedway. That was a lot of fun. I don't know where we'll be at this week, to be honest, if we're in a Carb Cup or a Pickup Cup race. No idea which one we'll be in or what track we'll be at, so you have to tune in to find out on that one. Or we might get a last-minute driver to come on for that one as well. Who knows? We will find out for that one, and then we 100% will be back at the track at Iowa this coming weekend at the next ARCA race. The only race at Iowa Speedway this year for the ARCA Menards Series. So if you are anywhere within the vicinity of Iowa Speedway, come on out and support this race. We don't want to lose Iowa Speedway completely. I know you don't want to lose Iowa Speedway completely. Come support this race. Buy a ticket, come out, watch the race. It's going to be a good show. Who knows what's going to happen in this race, but it's definitely going to be an exciting one. And I know you don't want to lose Iowa Speedway. I don't want to lose Iowa Speedway, neither do you. So come on out, support it, show the track, show NASCAR, show ARCA that you want to keep this track around by coming out and supporting this race and buying a ticket if you are anywhere within a reasonable distance to come out and support this race. But I think that's all we got for this one. So, as always, want to thank our Patreon supporter, Regional Manager William Holmes. Thank you, as always, for your support. It is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to be a patron of RNN, the link is down below in the description, patreon.com/racingnews. Now, it's not required by any means, but it is definitely appreciated when you want to support RNN in that way. But that's going to do it for this week's ARCA Menards Series Rewind show. So at that, I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.